Motherfucker, we're always so prepared when we start the show,
I know.
you know. Uh,
I'll keep some of this in the intro.
no, that's good. I always enjoy that. uh, and
Yeah, I do just have to apologize for having my voice being so soft. It's almost it's 8:30 right now, and the walls of my apartment are paper thin, so I do
mhm.
apologize for speaking lower than I normally do.
That's all right. You're gonna start doing. I mean, after you get off this, I know you have to record your ASMR videos, so
Yeah.
it'll get you in the right frame of mind for it. It's okay.
Hmm.
I apologize just for my voice in general. I wish it was softer, so you guys would be able to hear it less. Uh,
Should we
Good
should start
times.
just doing it in your basement, man? I thought you were gonna fix that up.
What, the basement?
Yeah,
This is the basement.
yeah. We
Yeah,
should just do live shows from there.
I know, right?
Yeah.
So I got this room over here behind me. That's where I used to be. So guys, oh, by the way, what the fuck is what's the name of our show? Stalled Arrow. Back to Stalled Arrow F1 show.
See how often we actually do these things.
I know, right? But I guess I think we're probably gonna try to do more of them for this season. We're gonna try to be more consistent, I guess, than we were last year.
Yeah.
Um, but I will tell you, I will let you guys in on an improvement that I have made since the last show that we did. Is I'm now even closer to my furnace. So in fact, you can see it. This is my furnace right here.
Gray
So
silver blob in the
yeah,
back.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's some ducting. So I used to at least be separated from my furnace by a wall, and now I'm in the same room as the furnace.
I mean, we
So
can't hear it, so
no, it's good that it's not super cold outside right now,
yeah.
so it's fine. But yeah, during the summer it'll probably suck too because the air conditioner is like right outside the window. So it's gonna go really, really well, guys. Can't wait. Can't wait. It's a real professional operation that we're running here. So we thought, we wanted to get our predictions in before the season actually officially starts. That way, if we're right, we can take a victory lap, and if we're wrong, we can ignore it. So
I know
what
one prediction that's going to be right, but
yeah,
yeah.
I'm sure. Yeah, there's definitely one that's looking
Yeah.
pretty easy to hit. So I think all that we're gonna do. We thought about doing this, and we thought about going through all 20 drivers, but the Zoom meeting has a time limit because I'm not about to pay for it.
No, hell no.
So we only have so long. So what we're gonna do, guys, we're gonna go through the top three for both the drivers and the constructors, and then we got some other things that we'll talk about after that. But I think that would probably be a good place to start. So based on what we've seen so far, what we've heard in the off season, all of the moves, the end of last year, for the constructors, let's actually go constructors first, because
Hmm.
who do you see as our top three right now?
I mean, it's not going to be a mystery. I think it's going to be Mercedes at three, Ferrari at two, Red Bull at one. Even if Alpine or not Alpine, even if Aston Martin is as fast as they looked in testing, Lance Stroll is not going to help Alonso bring that constructors or help them be in the top three of the constructor standings. I mean, if you take a look back at the 2020 season when were they still Racing Point at that time? Yeah, yes, that's right. The pink Mercedes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
This will be the third season as Aston
yeah.
Martin.
Um, Checo finished, I believe it was either fourth or fifth in the championship standings, and they were driving a Mercedes that won the championship the year before, and
Mhm.
Stroll finished 11th. So,
It's still like a crime against humanity that that Checo is the one that
yeah,
lost the drive
yeah.
after that
Mhm.
year. It's still, it's not baffling. I understand it, but no, it is odd. Stroll, yeah. I have it very much the same
Yeah,
for Red Bull, Ferrari, and Mercedes AMG.
not really
I,
shocking.
I very much wanted to put Aston Martin in there,
Mhm.
and I would not put it past Fernando Alonso to finish ahead of one of the Mercedes
No, I wouldn't either.
in the
Even
standings.
even if the Aston Martin isn't necessarily quicker or as quick as the Mercedes, if it's
Mhm.
close enough, I think Alonso will be able to steal one or two races from the Mercedes drivers, or possibly
Yeah,
even more.
for sure. He's I don't know, just he to me at least it looks like he really hasn't lost a step.
No.
He's and he's he got a lot of good running in testing.
Mhm.
The Aston Martin did look very good. But yes, it's just I don't know, man. Red Bull just I don't know. It looks like it's going to be like a walkthrough for Red Bull. Um, and Ferrari looks fine, I guess. There's probably less hope, I think, that there was for Ferrari last year, because Ferrari in testing looked really, really good.
Mhm.
Um, and whereas Red Bull just kind of like pulled a gap through the season, and it looked like the off season's done nothing to change that.
Yeah, I mean
And
they're not too far apart though. I'm hoping that with Bonato being sacked and then bringing in Vasseur, who can probably make
mhm.
the strategies a little bit more stable and kind of calm down the um, some of the arguing back and forth between the two drivers on track. Hopefully, they can bring it to Red Bull a little bit more this year.
it, I don't know, it would also be it would certainly behoove Charles Leclerc to separate himself from Sainz early in the season
Mhm.
so that Ferrari can really go to a number one and number two,
Yeah.
because that's, I think, for them to actually take the fight to Red Bull, specifically for, probably for second in the drivers' championship. Um, that's going to be important because I don't think that they're challenging Red Bull at the top. And Mercedes is just their Mercedes. So just you kind of feel like they're going to figure it out, even though right now it doesn't, it doesn't look nearly as bad as last year.
Mhm.
But it still doesn't look good exactly.
No, but I think Mercedes has the benefit of having the strongest driver pairing on the grid right now. You have
Yeah,
one of the best in Lewis Hamilton, who's still, I mean, he's not in his prime, but he's not like
he's
past his
close
glory. Yeah,
enough.
he's not a
Like,
Kimi Räikkönen at the end of Kimi's career.
no, he's certainly not phoning it in
Yeah,
or anything like that. It's Hamilton is still, if Hamilton were in the clear best car, Hamilton would win the championship. It's
yeah.
just, he's still that guy.
Mhm.
But Mercedes, I don't know. I feel like they'll figure it out, even if even if this race upcoming is not maybe the best for them, would not surprise me a ton. But yeah, I don't know. I it would be difficult for me to say that Mercedes is not going to finish better than third.
Yeah, they seem to be in a better mood than they were in last year's testing, which is always a
Yeah.
good sign.
Although they did actually stay though, they have like a, I don't know if it's like a full B spec car, but it looks like they have a design that they could go to abandon the zero side pod if they wanted to.
Yeah.
And
Hey.
I'm like, I don't know, man. Like, why? I, I'll tell you, I appreciate that they have stuck with it, just
Mhm.
because it's nice that there are still at least three really different defined concepts.
Yeah, yeah.
The Red Bull model, the Ferrari model, and the Mercedes model,
Mhm.
and you can tell which ones are the most successful because everybody's car kind of looks like a Red Bull, except for a couple that look a little bit like a Ferrari, and there's not really anything anymore that that looks anything like the Mercedes on the track.
Yeah, I mean, a good part of that is probably have to do with the powertrains that are in the car too. You kind of have to build it around the engine and the gearbox and
Yeah,
stuff like that. So some of it's going to be pretty familiar, but yeah, you can see most people are trying to copy Red Bull just because it seems like it works. They're the only team that can get pretty good top speed without having to deal with that porpoising issue. So if
yep.
you're going to copy anyone, you might as well copy the best.
I was, yeah. Aston Martin started it early last year. They showed up with the green Red Bull, and
Mhm.
but I will say they went to the Red Bull design faster than anybody else, and they, aside from Red Bull, they're the ones I suppose with the most experience with that side pod design, and in testing it does kind of look like that.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at them at the beginning of last year, Aston Martin, they really had nothing to lose by literally dumping the car that they had. You know, the only
No, it's
team
crazy
worse,
how different it looked too.
yeah, the only team worse than them was Williams. So, I mean, you don't
Yeah,
have anything to lose and everything to gain by making that
yeah,
move.
for sure. Um, so who do you like? Who's going to be your top three in the World Drivers Championship at the end of the season?
I think it'll be Verstappen, obviously, um, Leclerc, and then Checo, just because even with the fastest car in the grid, I Checo just doesn't. He's a solid driver who knows how to
Mhm.
manage his tires, but he is not driver's championship material. I don't think, you know.
No, I think if Max Verstappen didn't exist and Checo was the number one driver in that Red Bull, and where he was the one getting the benefit of everything and the
Mhm.
car being tailored to him, I think he's good enough, and that Red Bull this year is probably going to be good enough that I could see him beating Leclerc, but I can't see him beating Max
Oh
Verstappen.
no, yeah, no, beating Max is definitely out of
Yeah.
the question.
Um I'm I thought about it. Um I'm gonna go Max, obviously.
Mhm.
I'm gonna go Charles, and actually I'm third. I'm gonna go Carlos Sainz.
Yeah, it was pretty tough for me just because Sainz seems to, I think he had like 4 races, 3 or 4 races last year, where when he was under pressure, he started making mistakes. I think
Yeah.
it was Australia, where he went off pretty early on. Um, there was a couple more. I think Australia, Imola, and there was one more that he just kind of screwed his own race just because he was either trying to work his way through the grid and just couldn't do it fast enough. If he can settle down and not put so much pressure on himself, he's definitely got the pace and the talent to bring it to Leclerc. But I just don't know if he's going to be okay with, um, maybe he himself doesn't look at himself as the number 2 driver, but everybody's looking at Sainz as the number 2
Right.
driver at Ferrari. So if he can kind of get over that mental hurdle and just kind of drive his own race, I think he could stay really close to Leclerc throughout the year. But
He
I don't know if he can pull that off.
he certainly has the pace
Mm-hmm.
with Leclerc. If they both drive a perfect race, it's kind of a toss up. I think Leclerc is generally just I expect him to be like the tiniest bit faster
Yeah.
than Sainz. Both of them though, and I this is kind of Ferrari's problem, is they are both guys that you can force into errors.
Yep. Yep.
When it's the thing that makes Max and Lewis better than everybody else on the grid is when one of them makes like an unforced mistake, it's genuinely surprising. From 2021, when Lewis left his brake magic on
Mm-hmm.
that restart, it was Baku.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, Lewis is going to win the race, and he left the brake magic on, and he straight lined the first turn, and everybody went past him. He scored no points. It was like shocking
Yeah.
because it's just you don't expect a Lewis Hamilton to you don't expect him to make that mistake, and Max Verstappen has gotten to that point. I think now
Mm-hmm.
it helps that he's like 12 seconds up the road, but just you Max is that quality of driver.
Yeah. Yeah.
This season, it very much looks like he is the best driver. He is in the best car. They're both, pretty clear of, he's clear of the rest of the drivers, and the Red Bull is clear of the rest of the cars. So that's like, okay, so yeah, Max is going to win the championship. Um, the Ferrari drivers, like, I like both of them a lot, but that's the part that they lack, is that I don't want to say consistency because that's not it,
No, it
but
doesn't
it
happen. It
is.
doesn't happen often.
No, it doesn't. But when Charles or Signs, if they just bin it, like, you're not shocked by that.
No.
It's like, oh yeah, that's something that they do sometimes, which I don't know, if you're the top driver for Ferrari, that probably shouldn't be a thing that you do sometimes.
No, I mean, I think Leclerc only did it once last year at
Yeah,
France when Verstappen was trying the undercut and Leclerc was trying to extend the gap for an overcut, and then he went off. But I mean, you've seen it in years past. I don't think up until last year. I don't think he finished a race at Monaco because he kept trying to
yeah,
perform at his home race. And then, binning it in the castle section at Baku during quali when Seb was still there. You've seen both of them make those mental errors, and they're just they stick in your mind. So they kind of have that that history of folding under pressure a little bit, or trying to push a little too hard. And you don't get that with somebody like Verstappen, who, if that car can make it to the end of the race and he's quick, he's going to bring it home with a victory. And you can kind of just trust that Verstappen's going to win the race. I don't really have that trust with either one of the Ferrari drivers, or at least not as
Yeah,
much trust.
and which has sort of been like that's kind of what Ferrari has felt like, I guess. It just almost like in all aspects of the team, really.
Yeah.
In that it's that, the strategy last year, the car itself,
Mm-hmm.
really, really, really good. Except like sometimes inexplicably, just
Right.
everything
Right.
goes wrong either with the car, the driver, or the strategy. I don't know. It must be it must have been very frustrating last year to be a Ferrari fan. I I hope that I'm wrong. I would love to see, and I don't care if it's Leclerc or Sainz. I would love to see a Ferrari championship. I
I
just,
would too.
you
If
know,
not just for better racing
I
anyway.
think it's good for the sport when
Yeah.
Ferrari is legitimately successful, not
Mm-hmm.
like a threat who can sometimes steal a race or two. Like that's not what you want from Ferrari.
Mm.
They're Ferrari, for God's sakes. They
It's been
should
too
be.
long.
Yeah, it really has been. And I don't know how much of that might have been Benato. You know, I I I have not watched Drive to was it Drive to Survive, but what I've heard is that it's not particularly kind to him.
Yeah,
So
I could only get through about 3 episodes before I was like, I'm seeing the
I
same
I
scenes
read an
over and
article
over
where it was
again.
like, here's like the top 5 things you need to know. I'm like, all right, great. That's all I care about.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I don't know. It would be better if Ferrari was winning. And so I hope that I'm wrong in that prediction. I hope Charles Leclerc wins the championship this season.
Yeah, I
Um,
hope so too, but the car just doesn't look as fast in
no,
testing.
and it's stuff like it's not pace, it's gonna be tire wear again.
Hmm.
It's gonna be that the Red Bull is excruciatingly fast. Oh, and also by the way, it wears the tires like iron.
Yeah. Yeah.
That seems to be how it looked. I don't know, man. Like it's Adrian Newey. He's a sorcerer. It's
He is.
like when they're like, oh yeah, we're going back to ground effect cars. There was nobody in the world happier than Adrian Newey. And if they said tomorrow, yeah, we're banning CAD design and wind tunnels, it would be the best day of Adrian Newey's life. It's just,
I mean, it's true. Red Bull is the only team that didn't have porpoising screw with
no,
their car all year.
no, it's great. And like they're able to get lower and they still don't have it.
Hmm.
So it's like,
Yeah.
I sent you that picture with the flow viz.
Yeah.
And it's funny, like you look at the Mercedes one, and now look, I don't know what Mercedes's concept is, right? But it's all just sort of like everywhere. It's like, oh, that's sort of interesting. And then you look at the Red Bull, and the flow viz is just one solid green line right along the side pod,
Yeah.
nothing going up, nothing going down, just one green line from the front of the side pod to the back. Like somebody painted it on there with a brush. It's insane.
The flow, it was weird. The flow viz on the Red Bull reminded me of like a river on the map. Like you
Yeah,
can just kind of see
yeah,
it.
just sort of. Yeah,
And the Mercedes one reminded me of like somebody trying to map out like the thousands of like the Hawaiian islands that are
yeah.
scattered through
It's
the
just
Pacific.
it's just kind of everywhere.
Yeah.
And I mean, maybe that's Mercedes design. I don't.
Yeah.
They've been kind of doing that sort of stuff with the front wing. Trying to get more outwash than the FIA wants them to have and whatnot. But I don't know, man. Red Bull is just they just look like they're just going to be too strong for everybody this year, both from the team and driver standpoint.
Yeah, I mean, both drivers looked pretty comfortable. Both drivers really had positive things to say. I mean, nobody was closer uh, in lap times. Yeah, people are kind of sandbagging and slowing down at the end of sectors to make their car look slower and
Right.
stuff like that. But just the Red Bull just looked like on rails, on track, and it just looked like
Mhm.
they had the least amount of issues during testing.
Which is even like it's like double bad news because Red Bull is typically a team that shows up and they take a little while in
Mm,
testing to kind of get their feet under. But nope, car showed up, went on the track, thing looks mint,
yeah,
send it. You
pretty
know,
much it.
So, who do you think of, say, the remaining seven teams? And let's go, yeah, remaining seven teams. Who do you think is going to be a pleasant surprise this year?
Pleasant surprise in the last seven teams. I think I've been hearing a lot of talk that Alpine looks good and that they had their engines turned down the entire testing weekend.
I just
So
saw something about that. They said they
yeah,
haven't taken the fuel out of it.
yeah, something. So I mean, they're probably pretty surprising. They'll probably be the most surprising team. I mean, if you think about their engine last year, it was a glass cannon, whole bunch of power,
Mhm.
just could not finish the damn races. Now with the engine regs, um you can't get any more power out of the engines, but you can build them to be more durable.
Right.
So I mean, if they've gotten that problem
That
solved,
was certainly the way to do it.
yeah, if they've gotten that problem solved, then I wouldn't be surprised if Alpine could be up there fighting with Mercedes or Aston Martin for the third spot on the grid.
That was, I think, conventionally accepted by most people that that's how teams were going to go about doing engines last year.
Hmm.
And Christian Horner said as much. He said, "Well, I'd rather have you know I'd rather have to fix a very powerful engine right now than have to try to find power in a reliable one because it was an engine freeze. You can't.
Yeah.
The horsepower you have is basically the horsepower you have.
Hmm.
Yeah, and Alpine, I think, went harder on that than like anybody else.
Yeah.
Um, it seemed like last year. I mean, I mean, how many engines did Alonso use last year? Just a ridiculous. Like, was it like four races into the year he had used like that many engines?
Yeah, I wouldn't be
Um,
surprised.
and yeah, so I think you said glass cannon is exactly what they built, and but that was smart, especially for a team Alpine where it's like, okay, yeah, first year of the regulations, it's all sort of a crapshoot. Maybe you catch lightning in a bottle and you do something great and you win a championship. Well, awesome. But the odds are that you won't, and you'd be somewhere in the middle of the pack.
Hmm.
So you may as well build the engine like that, figure out your car for next year. And oh, by the way, now we have, a massive amount of horsepower. And by the way, it works this year.
Yeah, and we have three
Um,
more years until the engines will change again. So
yep. I think that's a pretty good pick for that.
yeah, and they
Uh,
got two really sturdy drivers
yeah,
as
two
well.
very French drivers, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whom I think are probably underrated. I think Ocon's probably one of the more underrated drivers on the grid.
Mhm.
Gasly's been getting a little bit of hype in the last few years. The car hasn't been all that great, so he hasn't been getting like great finishes. But I think he's both Ocon and Gasly are really underrated drivers who will probably end up surprising a lot of F1 fans this year.
Gasly briefly got into that weird space where he became so underrated that he was overrated.
Yeah, yeah.
Where it's just like everybody's, oh, yeah, Pierre Gasly is so underrated. It's like, well, no, man, everybody's talking about him all the time.
Hmm.
But yeah, then last season, I think he flew under the radar a little bit. I mean, the Alpha Tauri was not a great car last
Yeah,
year.
it crapped the bed halfway through the season, pretty much.
Yeah. And so yeah, he is, I think, better. Um, it, I think for him, and now, granted, he's not exactly the team leader because you have Ocon there, and those are two guys that I think are pretty level.
Hmm.
Um, I suppose if I had to take one, I'd probably take Gasly. Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
Ocon's a little aggressive on track
Ocon's
sometimes.
Ocon, yeah, especially for Ocon loves getting his elbows out for his teammate, which
Yeah,
is something that always annoys me about drivers.
yeah,
That's why for the longest time I really didn't like Checo. Because he just for his teammate, Checo's got sharp elbows for his teammate.
yeah,
And especially guys that are on like the same ish speed. So I could see the Alpha Tauri guys having a coming together or two.
I can see it.
Um, I think Aston Martin, but like I don't know, with the testing, I suppose at this point it wouldn't really be a surprise unless they finished third. Um, Alpine's probably a good call there. Alpha, I don't know. I expect them to be towards the back. So I'm gonna have to do the thing that I do, and I'm gonna choose Haas.
Okay,
Um,
okay,
Haas looked really good in testing. They
good
ran a
lap
ton
times.
of laps.
Yeah,
Um, they what they did do last year, and it didn't work out for last year when they introduced their B spec car. It didn't really give them any results or whatnot, but this year's car is an evolution of last year's B spec car. So, they came out of the box with, I think, a better understanding of the car for this year. They seemed reasonably quick. They were right in that kind of middle of the pack, fifth to sixth, maybe seventh ballpark. Which I think for Haas is really like that should be their for pretty much every midfield team that should be their target.
Mhm.
But Haas has done that before. So there's no reason that that's not what they should be aiming for, especially now with the new sponsor. They can actually spend to the cap. That'll be the first year that Haas has done that.
Yeah, and hopefully
So
they don't have to rebuild Hulkenberg's car four
yeah,
times.
that'll certainly do it. It says meeting will end in 10 minutes. So
Oh boy,
it's gonna make me upgrade, or we're gonna have to do this in two parts, I guess.
You want to end now and start it again?
Nah, we still got 9 minutes.
Okay.
We'll stop it with like two to go or whatnot, and then we'll do another one. But we're moving right along. I'm not
Yeah.
trying to do a 2 hour.
No, there's no need for that. Nobody wants to listen to us for 2 hours anyway.
No, I don't even want to think for 2 hours. I can't stand it. So yeah, I think with Magnussen and Hulkenberg, they're going to be consistent, maybe unspectacular, but you've got, I think, 2 years of those guys before you maybe start looking for a good young driver
Yeah.
to put in the car. Maybe by then they'll be off their no rookies thing.
I think Magnussen's not as bad as everybody thinks or his points portray. I think how many times did he have to replace his damn front wing on the first lap last year?
Yeah, it was crazy, and it's just either it's gonna fall off or it's not, and they black and orange flagged him for it, but then like they don't do that for Mercedes.
Yeah.
And then and then it breaks off and you can go on your way.
I mean, in all those races, if he didn't have to stop, he probably would have brought home a good chunk more points last year, and he would have made Mick look even worse than Mick actually looked.
We're just gonna have to start calling this the anti-Mick Schumacher show. Like the man's not even in the sport anymore.
No, we love Mick. He probably just wasn't ready for F1 last year.
Seems like a lovely guy, like a genuinely nice guy. I hope he gets another shot and proves us wrong. Okay. But yeah, so I'll go Haas for a pleasant surprise. I think they'll probably finish sixth or seventh, and I think that would be I think that would be very good for them.
Yeah, it'll be an improvement from last year. So
all right. So the other side of that coin, who do we think is going to be the disappointment?
I think McLaren's going to have a rough year.
yeah. At least early in the season, it certainly looks that way. They've, I don't know, man. Like either you, there's a certain way, like Mercedes last year bitching about stuff, where like you kind of looked at it and it's like, I don't know, like I know they always bitch about this stuff, but like this seems different.
Yeah.
And with the McLaren, it seems different. It seems like they've actually missed a lot, of their marks, and
they've come out and said it. They've come out and stated that they missed a lot of their targets during testing. Not only that, but apparently Norris was seen getting out of the car and punching a wall after one of the sessions, like in frustration or in anger. Drivers who are happy with their car don't generally do that. So
no, and even stuff like what was it, having to like re-glue the brake fins or something,
some more brake duct issues or something like that,
which they had brake duct issues last year too.
Yeah,
it's just, I don't know, something about the cars for McLaren coming to the first test, and it's almost like they're not finished building them yet.
Right, like they rushed at the last moment to put it all together.
I don't know what is going on with that team, but it's just and they'll figure it out during the season, and by the end of the year I'm sure that McLaren will be one of the faster midfield cars.
Yeah. The one thing I don't want to see is McLaren starting off slow. Piastri has been away from major competition for a year, so he's a rookie who's been out of racing for a year. The car sucks. He's going to be finishing outside the points for the first few races probably. I don't want to see him lose confidence and then not perform well. I mean, he does have a lot of hype surrounding him. Don't know where he's at mentally right now. I didn't read too many interviews on Piastri after testing, but I hope that he can maintain his um, mental fortitude to deal with the issues with the car now and not let it get to him, which I think was a pretty big issue with Mick, just dealing with such a shit car and then
Yeah.
being teamed up with somebody who was so much faster than you probably didn't do much for his confidence. So I hope Oscar can deal with this.
Yeah, I mean, Piastri is a higher caliber of driver.
Oh yeah, he's much
So,
better than Mick.
and I don't know. To me, like if I'm a rookie coming into Formula One and the car is trash,
Mm-hmm.
I, I think I'm going to be, like aware of that.
Yeah,
Where it's just like, is it me? I mean, if Norris is up there putting the car on the podium, then okay, yeah,
yeah,
but I think he is at least as talented as Lando, who is again, he's in that like he's become so underrated that he's overrated
yeah,
kind of thing. Where I'm like, no, he's no longer underrated. We are all aware that he's good.
yeah.
He's
Norris
he's
isn't in that top tier of driver, but he's leading the
he's like a
next.
1A.
Yeah,
Like
he's
he
leading
he
that
could,
next
yeah.
tier.
If he was a if Max because if Max decided to retire tomorrow and Norris was in the Red Bull, I think Norris would probably win the championship.
Yeah,
I think
probably.
he's he's
I agree
he's
with you.
good enough to do that.
Hmm.
I think he's better than Checo.
Yeah,
He's like he's probably I don't know. We say it's probably Max, Charles, Lewis. Is Norris? Oh, Norris and Alonso maybe fourth and fifth in some order.
yeah.
I'd probably put as the best, as the best guys out there right now. So
Hmm.
I don't know. Whatever it is, McLaren, they need to figure it out because right now they do look like they're going to be a disappointment.
A lot of rumors about Norris looking at other teams already too, or
I've
other
heard
teams
that
speculating about Norris. So if
he's
McLaren can't put a decent car on the grid, Norris won't be around that much longer.
he has spoken to Red Bull every time he's come up for a contract, but they've never been able to sign him.
Yeah.
Depending on what Checo does through the season, I I I could see that.
Hmm.
If you had Max and Lando, I mean that's by far the best driver pairing on the
And
grid
they seemingly get along well too.
for now.
And I don't know if you just I don't know when the article came out, but did you see Perez talking about support on the team?
No.
I can't remember exactly what it said, but he said, if I don't get support, then I'm not going to give it back either. And that was like recent, like I think
Oh, all
within the
right.
last few days. So I don't know what's brewing behind the scenes at Red Bull, but for him to come out and make that kind of statement before the season even starts, um,
Yeah, it doesn't
don't
sound
look good.
terrific.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. If he's already like looking over his shoulder at Danny
Yeah.
Rick or whatever,
Yeah, I'm sure
that's
the Ricardo hiring did not make him feel super secure.
probably not the best.
Yeah.
It's like the best available driver, and it's like, oh yeah, he's just gonna be the third Red Bull driver.
Yeah.
Apparently he wanted $10 million from Haas to go drive for them.
Really? That's not even that much though.
In terms of F1 drivers, it's probably not, but I think in terms of what Haas wanted to pay drivers, it probably is.
Yeah, I mean,
I mean, if you're
for
getting Magnussen for $2 million, is
mhm.
Ricardo 5 times better than Magnussen? I don't think so.
Yeah, will he bring home 5 times as many points? Probably not.
He might make the team a bunch of money though. People do love Danny Rick.
Yeah, you're right. There would be a
Is
lot
he
of
worth eight
PR.
million dollars from that standpoint? Well, maybe
Yeah.
not. But I mean, he is aside from the fact that Logan Sargent is American.
Hmm.
Even with Logan Sargent being American, I feel like Danny Rick is like the most American driver on the grid. He's just, I don't know.
Yeah.
He's Australian. He's an honorary American.
I mean, he's come out and said Austin, Texas is one of his favorite places in the world. So
There you go. He drove
might as
Dale
well be.
Earnhardt's race car.
Yeah. Yeah.
He drives number 3 because of Dale Earnhardt. So,
How are we on recording time?
oh, we got a minute and 30 seconds.
All right. We should probably restart this and finish up the
Yeah,
last
let's
part.
let's we'll hop off here and then
Okay.
we'll hop back on. You can stitch them together.
All right.
I'll send you a new invite in a second.
Okay. And we're
Okay.
back.
Right. Yeah, there we go.
Okay.
So oddly enough, that was it was funny. We probably could just wrapped it up in the last minute because I think that was
Yeah.
pretty much all the topics I wanted to get to on that.
Why don't we just go over the rookies real quick? Where do you expect them to? How
Oh
do you
yeah,
expect them to do?
so they're all pretty decent, you know. I mean, Piastri obviously is the best of the three.
Yeah,
And I guess I don't know, between DeVries and Sargent, I prefer Sargent. I think
I I do too. I just think the AlphaTauri will give DeVries an advantage just because the Williams seems to be far and away the slowest car in the grid.
see I've seen thing Gary Anderson had the AlphaTauri as the
Yeah, you sent me
slowest.
that. You sent me that.
And I mean like significantly off of the Williams, which is right there with the McLaren.
See, that's odd because almost every other list that I've seen has put Williams in last place.
Yeah, I don't Williams, I mean, I suppose for Williams, it's not all they have to do, it doesn't matter if they're in 10th or ninth. If they're closer to the leader than they were last year, then they're doing fine, you know?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the races, Alex, I don't know how many times he finished 11th or 12th, like literally one or two positions away from points. So if they can improve the car just a little bit more,
Mm-hmm.
um, you know, it wouldn't be surprising to see him like in the low points positions, um, commonly in the season.
Mm-hmm.
I think I think DeVries has a lot of hype around him that I'm not really sure of why he does. I don't think he's that amazing of a driver. I think he's a pretty
He's
solid
fine.
driver. Yeah, but I mean, there are people saying he's going to come in and perform better than Yuki. Look, is that really saying much though? Yuki is he closed the gap to Gasly last year, but he's still so inconsistent with his races that um I wouldn't be surprised if he did beat Yuki just because Yuki crashed out so many damn times in the season.
Yeah, it wouldn't exactly be shocking. I think that's probably AlphaTauri. Is that the would you rate that as the worst driver pairing?
Yeah, the weakest, I
Yuki and
think.
DeVries. Yeah.
They're super young, or not super young, but
No,
like,
DeVries is like 27, isn't he?
yeah, I
27,
mean,
28.
they have so little time in
Is he
F1
is he
amongst them.
older than Max?
I think Max is 26, so yeah, I think he's older than Max.
So they might either that or they're like the same. Which I mean, really, just Max is in. Think about Max is in his ninth Formula One season.
Yeah, I mean, Max also
that's
came in when he was
that's
16,
crazy.
though, right?
Max, freak of nature.
Yeah.
But
I think I think the Vries got way too much hype from that finish in Monza. Look, the Williams was always going to do well at
it was built
Monza.
for that track. I
There
mean,
were
it
like
was.
three cars that were probably going to finish ahead of De Vries at DNF in the race.
Mhm.
And then 7 laps to go, he gets a safety car that helps him finish ninth with Joe Guan Yu breathing down his neck
Yeah.
for those last few laps. So I think it was impressive that he came in with so little preparation and managed to finish well. But I think that track flattered him more than most people think.
Yeah, I if Albon were in the car, he would have certainly done what DeVries did.
I think so. I think so.
Um, that was, I mean, that everybody at Monza, if they had to say what's the one car that you don't want to have to pass, it would be the Williams.
Yeah, or a Red Bull.
Because it's
Yeah.
just friggin' rocket ship in a
Hmm.
straight line. You get to the turns, and well, that's a separate issue. But all Monza is straight lines.
Yeah.
So he's good. I thought it made sense, if he would have like signed with Williams. I thought that would have made a lot of sense.
Hmm.
I was surprised when it was AlphaTauri that signed him.
I mean, who else did AlphaTauri have to sign though?
I,
Ricardo going back
I
to the B
mean,
team.
yeah. I mean, you could have sent Ricardo back there.
Yeah, I mean, you already hired him as a reserve driver, anyways. Why not just plop him into that second seat?
Had they done that by that point? I don't
Mm,
know.
no, you're right. They haven't. But I'm saying, like, eventually,
Yeah.
like you brought Ricardo back anyway.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
why not just
Yeah.
put him in the
Do it
seat?
that way. I don't know. I thought it was an odd because DeVries is kind of in that like, he's sort of a he's a good prospect, but he's kind of a, he's not a Piastri
No,
prospect.
not even a
He's
Sargent prospect in my book, honestly.
no, and Sargent is interesting too because he was sort of briefly in the sort of like not a prospect area where he, like thinking about it like in baseball terms, you have guys that are like can't miss, and you get this guy. It's like, oh yeah, maybe he's like a 4A kind
Hmm.
of player. He'll go back and forth between AAA and the major leagues, and really turned it on last season where now everybody's like, oh wait, no, this guy's actually very, very good.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at his season, he was a rookie, finished fourth,
Yeah,
behind three other guys who had multiple seasons in F2.
yeah.
So it's not like he um, got beaten by a bunch of nobodies. Like he did pretty well in F2 for his rookie season.
Mhm.
Um, so he did seem to kind of come out of nowhere though. Like nobody had heard of him
I
before about halfway through the season.
I remember arguing with somebody on Twitter
Oh God.
2 3 years ago, and it wasn't even in like a like because I'm not like a Logan Sargent fanboy or whatnot.
Hmm.
And somebody said something about how there were like zero American drivers in anybody's academy, and I'd said, well, no, Logan Sargent is in Williams, and he said he will never get near a Formula One drive, and I don't remember who the person I was arguing with, but man, fuck you.
Yeah.
So
I'm gonna go look up your tweets now.
right, yeah, no, I'll have to find that. I'll be like, hey man, you remember when you said that? And he'll be like, no, I don't remember when I said that because it was like 4 years ago, you loser. So
Mhm.
that's it's fine. I don't know. He's good. I think that was the correct signing for Williams in that they have Albon, who is fast, and he does a good job taking care of the car too. So
Yeah, right. Yeah, you're right. Not too many DNFs through his through any
he's
fault of his
not.
own,
You don't usually see. Albin isn't a guy that you see doing like dumb shit.
like Yuki.
Yeah, where it's like, oh, what was he thinking right
Why
then?
is
Just
he
like his
diving into his teammate?
yeah, or just his brain just turned off,
Yeah.
just very briefly, but but for long enough.
Yeah.
Which I think that his time at Red Bull and his time off probably helped him with that.
Hmm.
He yeah, undoubtedly came back as a better driver.
Oh yeah.
And also, just some guys, if he went back to Red Bull right now, he would for sure be better than he was.
Hmm.
You know, but I think he is, I think, like the correct driver for Williams right now. Uh,
Yeah.
he's gonna maximize the car, and that's good for Logan Sargent. He's a quality measuring stick. If Sargent can come in and not like get his ass handed to him by Albin, then that's pretty good. You know,
I, I mean, at the very least, I think he's going to perform better than Latifi, and not crash quite as
yeah,
much as
that's
Latifi.
that's gonna suck. This is gonna be the first season without Nicholas Latifi in what 5 6 years. He was in Formula One for a good long while.
Yeah, 2020 was his first year, so 4 years. Yeah.
Was it only 4 years?
Yeah.
Oh man, I don't know. It felt so much longer with
Yeah.
with Gotifi.
Yeah.
Um,
He'll be
yeah,
missed.
he was. Yeah, he was. He had a good 2 years where he was. I I wouldn't call myself a fan, but I thought as far as pay drivers went, he was fine.
He didn't
And
get on
then
anybody's
last year,
nerves.
what was that?
He didn't get on anybody's nerves
No,
for the
he
most part.
had. He inadvertently caused Abu Dhabi 2021. Um, Not his fault. He still had a
No.
race to run.
Yeah.
Anybody, oh, what are you doing? Be like, well, bro, he's trying to pass somebody. He's a racing driver. What do you want? All you jerks out there quoting Senna all the time. Um, so
Who don't even understand the damn quote.
no.
Go for the gap quote. Look, I made a video on it. All right.
Yeah, there you go,
He,
guys.
he
Go watch
wasn't
the
he
go watch the
wasn't
Gap video.
he wasn't spouting philosophy. He was making an excuse for doing a dick move on track. And that is it. All right. It's not some philosophy to live by. He was trying to justify a dick move on track. That is it.
There we
But
go.
anyway, I'm
So
sorry. Go ahead.
it doesn't always have to be that deep. It could just be that Senna was being a dick.
Yeah, that's
You know.
literally all it was.
Yeah, I don't know. Latifi was up until last year. Is just something about these new cars that came in last year. That's just it's like, oh wait, no, we found the line. you know,
Hmm.
um, some, I always thought like if my parents were wealthy and I could start, like racing cars or something like that when I was a kid, and I was a very different person than I am now, I feel like my ceiling would have been, maybe like GT sports cars or like touring cars, something like that.
Yeah.
I think that's probably maybe where I could have gotten to if I had all the opportunities.
Hmm.
Um, and Latifi, God bless him, he got to race in Formula One. You know, we don't all get to say that. He scored points in Formula One.
He did.
There,
And and
there's
and on merit,
yeah,
a few of those times. So
there are guys who went their entire Formula One career who are probably, who scored 0 points, who are maybe more well thought of than Nicholas Latifi. But Nicholas Latifi scored Formula One points. What do you want from the man?
I know.
You know,
Yep.
so I mean, Williams has upgraded their lineup. Sargent is certainly an upgrade from Latifi.
Hmm.
Uh,
Hard to get any worse, but
a little bit, yeah. I'm trying to think. So if we're and so we were thinking about a short show, but now I'm thinking about it.
yeah. Is there any teams
Um,
we just kind of skipped over? We didn't
no, we
talk about
talked.
Alfa
Oh, we
Romeo
haven't really
much.
talked much about Alpha,
Yeah. Although,
but they haven't really changed anything. They just painted the parts of the car that were white black.
and they seemingly will probably finish where they finished last year, which is middle of the pack,
Fifth,
pretty much.
sixth, yeah,
Yeah.
probably somewhere in that ballpark.
Yeah.
Until they become Audi several years from now. So I guess what? So next year, I guess they'll just be Sauber, which is interesting.
Oh, they're dropping the Alfa Romeo. Alfa
I
Romeo's
think
dropping
Alpha
them.
said that they're leaving after this year.
Hmm.
So I guess they'll just be Sauber for 3 years or so, because Audi, I don't think, will put their name on the car until it has an Audi engine in it.
I mean, when you look at the car, it's more of a Ferrari car than it is an Alfa Romeo car, anyway. So
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's Sauber. What do you want?
yeah,
Yeah, their driver lineup is good. I like Joe.
he improved last year, closed the gap to Bottas
Yeah,
as the season progressed. So
I think he was probably um I mean, obviously he's I mean, I suppose a pay driver,
yeah,
obviously,
he's a
but
paid driver. Yeah.
um but a talented one. He's in the he's in the Pastor Maldonado. Look, he's better than Pastor Maldonado, all right? But Pastor Maldonado was a pay driver, but he was fast.
Hmm.
He would crash, but he was very fast.
He was fast when he didn't crash. Just
Yeah,
happened to
and
crash a
he just
lot.
if you said, "Hey, I need I need one super duper fast lap from a pay driver. Who you got?" I'm like, Pastor Maldonado. Is either he's gonna set the record or he'll crash.
Yeah.
It's checkers or wreckers, you
Yeah,
know.
one thing for Joe, I'm surprised that Alpha extended him for one more season. I thought he'd be a one and done guy, but I guess he must have done enough to
Yeah.
impress them.
Well, and I think probably the Chinese market is probably something that you
Yeah,
want
they
to
don't.
have.
We don't have a race in China this year, do we?
No, we do not.
Okay, I think they originally brought it back and then they
Yeah,
got
with
rid
their
of it.
COVID restrictions, it's
Yeah,
just they
they
couldn't
quit.
get on the same page
So it's
soon
kind of
enough.
sad. I think once they do have a race in China, if he's still on the grid, that's going to be a huge payday, I think, for them. So,
It
uh,
wouldn't surprise if he continues and he stays with the team. It wouldn't surprise me to see him there for the Audi takeover,
mhm.
just because again, that's a huge market for Audi.
Yeah, I think if he as long as he just improves a little bit on what he did last year, I think they'll probably keep him on for one more year. I don't know who else Ferrari really has in the pipeline right now that they could argue for that second seat.
Mhm.
Um, and I think Alfa Romeo has actually been moving away from Ferrari drivers since they got rid of Giovinazzi
They're
in
Yeah,
Q.
I mean, since that they're going to be Audi in a couple years anyway, I
Yeah,
could see them trying to distance themselves from Ferrari as much as they can.
yeah,
I would think that the number of parts that they would take from Ferrari has to be minimal.
yeah. They're
Where
not Haas.
Haas, I'm
Yeah,
sure Haas will like ratchet. Haas, I think, takes every available Ferrari part,
I'm pretty sure they do. Yeah,
which is smart for them.
yeah,
It's why wouldn't they? Especially because look, man, at this point in 2026, Haas might be Ferrari's only customer.
yeah. And you can focus on other parts
You
of
know,
the car if you're
yeah,
buying tried and tested Ferrari parts.
Yeah, so I mean, being in the midfield, that's not bad.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty much it for this show, right?
Yeah, I think we've pretty much hit on most drivers and all the teams now. Yeah, it's just so hard to talk about any of this stuff like right after testing, just because the numbers aren't really reliable. We
No,
haven't seen anybody like compete for real quite yet. But race weekend starts in 2 days,
let me ask
Friday.
you this: I have one final question.
Yeah,
Where does Fernando Alonso finish in the constructors in the drivers' championship versus Lance Stroll? Where do each of them finish?
in my rank, I had let me double check here. I had Alonso finishing seventh, and I had Stroll finishing 10th.
Okay, so you have a gap of 3.
Yeah, but I can argue for Alonso being like sixth as well, sixth or fifth, depending on
Okay,
how fast they are.
I was particularly rude about it because I had Alonso 5th and Stroll 12th. I just I don't know, man. I think Sebastian Vettel is a very nice man,
Hmm.
right? A very good driver and a very nice man. And I don't think Fernando Alonso is that nice of a man.
No, no.
Um, I don't know, man. I if I'll tell you, if Alonso does not just like eat Lance Stroll's lunch, I will be very impressed by Lance Stroll. And I've like I liked Stroll a lot, like when he was a rookie.
Mm.
When he was at Williams, he came in and I thought he was very very good. Um, and it just seems like he's regressed.
Yeah, he hasn't
He
gotten
just
better.
he does dumb things, and he just keeps doing dumb things
Yep.
and acts shocked when these dumb things happen. So I don't know, man. I'm like Alonso, and I mean like Alonso had all this time testing the car. And I
Hmm.
realized Stroll drove the thing last year, but I don't know.
Seems like a
I
totally
don't.
different car though. So
Yeah, I mean, kudos to Lawrence Stroll for. I mean, he signed the best available driver. You're pretty clearly serious. If you're putting Fernando Alonso in the car, you're you're serious.
yeah,
So I don't know. I would I would like to see Alonso on the podium. I'd love to see Alonso win a race this year. I think that would be great. It's in that same like with Ferrari. If Ferrari is successful and Alonso is successful, that will be an entertaining season.
yeah. I don't think Stroll is that great. I only put him 10th just off of the pace of the Aston Martin. I think
Yep.
if the car is fast enough, it will cover up for any of his lack of skill.
Yeah.
So that's why I put him 10th. But yeah, don't be fooled. I don't really think that highly of Stroll.
No, no, not
Okay.
particularly. So, all right, guys, we'll wrap it up here. I think I don't know, maybe we'll try to do a recap Sunday night after the race.
We will try.
Right. We'll give it a shot. We'll see how terrible my kids feel like being. Um, but anyway, guys, just enjoy the race this weekend, and we'll talk to you whenever.
Yeah, we'll see you guys.
All right, later. All right, there we go.